So here in Rayburn Office Building in Washington with Ed Felten, a notable Princeton computer scientist who is here to testify. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
So what's at stake here in reform of the Electronic Communications Privacy Act?
Well, the issue here with ECPA and cloud computing is really whether the law is going to get in the way of innovation and of people making the best technical and economic choices about how to run their systems and where to keep their data.
Okay. And where have some of the security and privacy implications gone in the past couple of years?
Well, people are debating the pros and cons of trusting their data and computation to someone else, to a cloud provider, rather than doing it themselves. And obviously there are pros and cons. Everybody likes to have control over what they're doing, but the cloud providers often are really pros. They have extensive staffs, and there are economies of scale in running a big data center. So there are certainly cost and sometimes performance benefits.
So one of the things that's being discussed here is the differences on protections under the law for data that's stored in the cloud versus on the desktop. How is that important from a computer scientist perspective?
Well, from a computer scientist standpoint, I would prefer to live in a world where people can make the decision to use the cloud or not use the cloud based purely on the technical considerations, based on what makes the most sense for what they need, and not have their lawyer telling them, well, I know that makes sense, but you can't do it because there's some legal line that you'd be on the wrong side of.
So what does that mean for the ways that Congress can or should change the law?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to get into the minutia of what the statute says or should say. But I know that that it makes sense to take a fresh look at this statute. It dates to 1986, and the internet was a very different place back then. And it makes sense to take a fresh look at it and make sure it's not getting in the way of things that people need to do.
As you do research now, and you consider the prospect that government or other entities might want to look at what you're doing, how do you protect against that if you're doing computational work in the cloud?
Well, if we're concerned really about any kind of access to our data, we'll try to encrypt things. That works for data. For computation, there's not all that much you can do in the cloud right now. Okay. I don't think we're really a target though.
And are there any other considerations that you'd like to put before the American people before you go into the hearing?
Well, no. I mean, I think this is an important step in what Congress should always be doing, which is looking at the laws we have and seeing whether they still make sense in the technological world we live in now.
Thank you very much, Professor.
You're welcome.